In a town where love was tested by the weight of hate, Ava Carter dared to dream of a world beyond prejudice. Her story wasn't just about heartbreak and betrayal, it was about courage, resilience, and the transformative power of love. This is the journey of a girl who turned pain into purpose, proving that even in the darkest fields of hate, the seeds of hope and redemption can grow. Hello and welcome to the Alcott Stories YouTube channel. We're so happy to have you join our growing family. Whether you're new here or a returning viewer, your presence means the world to us. Here, we share stories of love, courage, and breaking barriers, and we're thrilled to have you along for the journey. Get ready for some heartwarming, thought-provoking content that's sure to inspire and touch your heart. To our amazing Alcott family, thank you for your continued support. Your likes, comments, and shares make all the difference, and we're beyond grateful for the positive energy you bring to this community. We couldn't do this without each of you, and we're so excited to keep creating and growing together. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. Welcome again, and we're so glad you're here. In the small southern town of Harmony Hill, prejudice wasn't just an unspoken rule. It was the air everyone breathed. The town's streets were lined with quaint houses, their picket fences unable to mask the divides that ran deeper than property lines. Ava Carter had grown up here, knowing the sting of whispered insults and cold stares. But Ava wasn't the type to let the world define her. Her solace lay in the small joys of life, the golden glow of sunrise as she sat with her sketchpad, the soft hum of her mother's lullabies carried by the breeze, and the gentle rhythm of her brush against canvas. Painting wasn't just a hobby for Ava. It was her escape, her rebellion against a world that tried to cage her spirit. One afternoon, as Ava browsed the town's modest marketplace, her path crossed with Ethan Blake, the golden-haired son of the wealthiest family in Harmony Hill. Ethan was everything Ava was taught to avoid: wealthy, white, and living in a world where his privilege shielded him from the struggles she faced daily. Yet, there was something about him that disarmed her. It began with fleeting glances. Ava caught him looking at her from across the market square, his blue eyes holding a curiosity that made her heart quicken. At first, she ignored him, brushing it off as nothing more than idle interest. But fate seemed determined to bring them together. Their first conversation happened by chance, or so Ava thought. She was sketching by the old oak tree on the outskirts of town, her hands smudged with charcoal, when Ethan approached. He had a book tucked under his arm and a hesitant smile on his face. "You're drawing," he said, pointing to her sketch. "It's beautiful. You've captured something real." Ava blinked, startled by his presence. "Thank you," she replied, her voice cautious. From that day on, the old oak tree became their meeting place. Ethan would bring her books, poetry, philosophy, and novels she had never heard of, and they would talk for hours. He listened to her dreams of becoming an artist, of leaving Harmony Hill behind to find a place where she could be herself without fear or judgment. "You're not like anyone I've ever met," Ethan would say, his voice soft and genuine. Ava couldn't help but feel the sincerity in his words, and for the first time in her life she felt truly seen. For Ethan, Ava was a revelation. She wasn't just beautiful, she was strong, intelligent, and filled with a fire that lit up the darkness of his sheltered world. Being with her made him question the values he had grown up with, the quiet prejudices his family carried, and the privileges he had taken for granted. Ava, too, found herself opening up in ways she never thought possible. She shared with Ethan her fears, her dreams, and the pain of living in a town that seemed determined to keep her in her place. In return, Ethan spoke of his longing to break free from his family's expectations and make a life that was his own. Their love grew quietly, like wildflowers in a forgotten meadow. To the world, they were an impossible pairing, but to Ava and Ethan, their connection felt natural, as though the universe had brought them together for a reason. And yet, in the back of her mind, Ava couldn't silence the whisper of doubt. Harmony Hill was a place where love like theirs wasn't just frowned upon. It was dangerous. Still, As Ethan took her hand under the shade of the old oak tree, Ava allowed herself to hope. For a brief moment, she believed their love could transcend the walls of prejudice that surrounded them. It wasn't just a love story to her. It was a promise of freedom, a chance to rewrite the rules of a world that had always tried to define her. The evening was perfect, almost too perfect, as though the universe itself was holding its breath for what was about to happen. The sun dipped below the hills, casting the sky in a fiery tapestry of gold and crimson. Ava and Ethan sat under their oak tree, hands intertwined, sharing quiet laughter and whispered dreams. For a moment, the world beyond the meadow seemed to disappear. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Hidden among the bushes were a group of Ethan's friends, their laughter silenced as they watched the scene before them. When they saw Ethan lean in to kiss Ava, shock turned to anger, their whispered disdain carried by the evening breeze. By the time Ava and Ethan parted ways that night, the rumor had already begun its journey through the small town, spreading like wildfire. By the time Ava returned home, she felt the weight of the world pressing on her chest. Her father's worried expression, the tense silence in their usually warm home, it all pointed to the storm that was brewing. Later that evening, Ava met Ethan again, this time near the edge of town. Her heart raced, but not from excitement. It was fear, gnawing at the edges of her hope. "We'll get through this together," she whispered, her voice trembling but determined. She held his hand tightly, searching his face for the reassurance she so desperately needed. Ethan nodded, but his eyes betrayed him. Ava saw the flicker of doubt, the creeping shadow of fear that threatened to undo everything they had built. The confrontation came quickly and without mercy. Ethan's family, along with his so-called friends, cornered him in his home. The accusations flew like arrows. "How could you do this to us? Do you have any idea what people will say?" "That girl is trouble, Ethan." Ethan tried to argue to defend Ava, but his voice faltered under the weight of their collective outrage. His father's words echoed in his mind, cruel and unforgiving. "If you keep this up, you're no son of mine." When Ethan finally spoke, his voice was hollow, stripped of the warmth Ava had fallen in love with. "I barely know her," he said, his words robotic, rehearsed. "She's just confused." Ava had been standing outside, hidden in the shadows, hoping Ethan's love would be enough to withstand the storm. When she heard his betrayal, the world seemed to crumble beneath her feet. Her hands trembled as she stepped into the light, her face illuminated by the dim glow of the porch lamp. Ethan turned to her, his eyes wide with guilt, but it was too late. "Ava, he began, but she silenced him with a look. "No," she said softly, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "You don't get to explain." Ava walked away, her steps slow but deliberate, her back straight despite the weight of her broken heart. She refused to let them see her crumble. Yet inside, her soul screamed in agony. Ethan's denial wasn't just of their love. It was of her very existence, her worth, her humanity. That night, as Ava lay in her small bedroom, staring at the cracked ceiling, she let the tears flow freely. The boy she thought would stand by her had turned his back when she needed him most. She wasn't just mourning the loss of love. She was mourning the illusion of hope she had dared to believe in. But deep within the ashes of her pain, a small ember of defiance began to glow. They had tried to strip her of her dignity, her spirit, but Ava knew one thing. She was more than their hate. Ethan's betrayal had broken her heart, but it hadn't broken her. She whispered to herself in the darkness, "I'll survive this. I'll rise from this." And though her voice trembled, the fire within her was far from extinguished. The days that followed Ethan's betrayal dragged on, each one heavier than the last. Ava woke every morning to the same aching truth. The town knew. Harmony Hill had never been kind, but now it was cruel in ways that cut deeper than words. Her garden, a place of solace where she once nurtured life and beauty, became the first target of the town's wrath. Overnight, her neatly planted flowers were uprooted, trampled by boots that left the soil barren and broken. The vibrant blooms that once symbolized her hope now lay scattered like the pieces of her shattered heart. Inside their modest home, Ava's father bore the brunt of the town's hostility. His small carpentry shop, a lifeline for their family, became a target for boycotts and whispered threats. Customers stopped coming, and the once busy workshop fell silent. Through it all, her father tried to stay strong. "They can't break us, Ava," he said, though the weariness in his voice betrayed the truth. His hands, calloused and worn from years of hard work, now trembled as he gripped the dinner table. His once hopeful eyes seemed dimmer, shadowed by the weight of protecting his daughter from a world that seemed intent on tearing her down. Ava felt the guilt pressing on her chest like a stone. She had dared to dream, dared to love, and now her father was paying the price. She withdrew into herself, retreating to her room where her canvases and paints waited for her like old friends. Her art became her voice when words failed her. She poured her pain onto the canvas, each stroke of her brush a scream, a sob, a defiance. Stormy skies, broken chains, and lone figures standing against raging tides filled her work. Her paintings spoke of anguish, of battles fought and lost, but also of resilience, of a fire that refused to be extinguished. One evening, under the dim light of her desk lamp, Ava stared at her latest creation, a lone black girl standing in a desolate field, her face streaked with tears, her fists clenched against the oncoming storm. The painting was raw, honest and heartbreaking, yet there was a strength in the girl's eyes that mirrored Ava's own. "I'll leave this place," Ava whispered to herself, her voice trembling with determination. Not to escape, but to rise above. The decision wasn't easy. Harmony Hill was her home, the place where her mother had sung lullabies to her as a child, where her father had built their house with his own hands. Leaving felt like tearing a piece of herself away, but staying meant suffocating, allowing the hate to consume her spirit. She began to plan her escape quietly, saving every penny she could from the few odd jobs she managed to find. Her father, though hesitant, supported her decision. "You deserve a chance to live, Ava," he said one night, his voice heavy with both pride and sorrow. "To show the world what you're capable of." Each day Ava painted with renewed purpose. Her canvases became a lifeline, not just for her but for her father, who saw in her art a reflection of their shared struggle and their unyielding strength. As weeks turned into months, Ava began to feel the stirrings of hope again. The town could trample her garden, boycott her father, and spread their venom, but they couldn't touch her soul. With every painting, every plan she made, Ava was reclaiming her power. Harmony Hill had tried to break her, but Ava wasn't just surviving, she was preparing to rise. Her art, born of pain, was now a testament to her resilience, a promise to herself that she would not let hate define her. Months after her vow to rise above, Ava's life had changed in ways she couldn't have imagined. Her painting, titled Field of Hate, had been selected for a regional art competition, one that brought together artists from all walks of life. The piece was a raw, haunting depiction of her pain and strength, a lone black girl standing defiantly in a barren field, surrounded by faceless figures of hate. The girl's fists were clenched, her posture unyielding, as though she were daring the storm to break her. When the painting was unveiled at the exhibition, silence fell over the room. The raw emotion of the piece seemed to seep into the air, gripping everyone in its presence. People murmured in awe, some wiping away tears as they took in the story the painting told. It wasn't just art. It was a reflection of countless untold struggles, a call for justice, a reminder of the strength it takes to endure. The painting became the centerpiece of the competition, sparking conversations that reached far beyond the gallery walls. Critics praised Ava's ability to channel her anguish into something so powerful, so universally resonant. News outlets began covering the story of the young black artist from Harmony Hill, and soon, Field of Hate was being discussed in classrooms, community centers, and homes across the region. Among the crowd at the exhibition stood Ethan. He had heard about the painting through whispers in Harmony Hill, but nothing could have prepared him for the sight of it. As he gazed at the lone figure in the field, he felt his chest tighten, his breath catch in his throat. Every brushstroke seemed to scream his failure, his cowardice. The faceless figures of hate were a reflection of the very fear he had succumbed to, the chains he had refused to break. Ethan couldn't tear his eyes away. The girl in the painting wasn't just a symbol of resilience. She was Ava, the woman he had loved and betrayed. His heart ached with regret as he realized the depth of the pain he had caused her. She had offered him a glimpse of a world free of prejudice, a love that transcended barriers, and he had turned his back on it. That night, Ethan returned home and sat at his desk, staring at a blank sheet of paper. Words eluded him at first, but slowly his guilt and longing poured onto the page. "Dear Ava," he began, his handwriting shaky. "I don't know if this letter will ever reach you, but I need to write it. I need you to know that I failed you. I failed us, but most of all I failed myself. You showed me what love could be, and I let fear destroy it." Tears blurred his vision as he continued, each word a confession, a plea for redemption. "I don't ask for your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I promise you, I will spend the rest of my life trying to be the man I should have been for you. The man who would have stood beside you no matter the cost." Ethan sealed the letter and addressed it to Ava, but he hesitated to send it. Would she even read it? Did he deserve for her to? In the end, he decided it didn't matter. The letter wasn't about seeking absolution. It was about owning his failure and promising himself he would change. For Ethan, Field of Hate was more than a painting. It was a mirror, forcing him to confront the ugliest parts of himself. As he left the gallery that night, he made a silent vow to use his privilege and voice to challenge the prejudice he had once allowed to silence him. Ava's art had sparked a movement, and Ethan knew he had a choice. He could remain a bystander in a world of hate, or he could fight to make it a world where love, like Ava's, could thrive without fear. Years rolled on, and Ava's life became a testament to resilience and the transformative power of love. Her name was no longer whispered in small-town disdain but spoken with admiration across the country. Her art, born from the depths of pain, had sparked conversations that reached far beyond Harmony Hill. Yet, it was her voice, her words, that left an indelible mark on hearts and minds. Standing on the stage of a packed auditorium, Ava surveyed the sea of faces before her. Some were young, eager to learn. Others were older, carrying the weight of their own experiences. Each of them had come to hear her story, to understand how love could persist in a world so often filled with hate. Her voice, calm yet powerful, filled the room. "Love is brave," she began, her words resonating like a melody. "It doesn't bow to hate or hide in the shadows. It challenges the world to be better, to rise above fear and ignorance. And when we find the courage to stand for it, we transform not just ourselves, but everyone around us." The audience erupted into applause, some standing, others wiping away tears. Among them sat Ethan, now a quiet but determined advocate for change. Time had weathered his youthful arrogance and replaced it with humility and purpose. His family's estate, once a symbol of division, had been repurposed as a community center, a haven where children of all races could learn, play, and grow together. Though Ethan and Ava's paths had diverged, they remained connected by a shared mission to heal the wounds of their town. They had transformed their pain into action, their mistakes into lessons. Ethan's guilt had been channeled into a lifelong effort to dismantle the barriers he once upheld, and Ava had become a beacon of hope for those who believed the fight against hate was worth enduring. After the event, as the crowd dispersed, Ethan approached Ava. His hands trembled as he held out a small object, a wooden heart, roughly carved but carefully smoothed around the edges. "I made this for you back then," he said, his voice unsteady but sincere. "I never had the courage to give it to you, I let fear silence me, Ava. But now I just want you to know that your love didn't just change me. It saved me. Ava took the heart, its imperfections evident beneath her fingertips. She traced the grooves and edges, feeling the weight of what it represented: regret, growth, and the enduring power of love. Tears welled in her eyes, but they weren't of pain. They were tears of closure, of peace. She looked up at Ethan, her smile soft but resolute. "Love has a way of finding its purpose," she said gently, her voice carrying a sense of profound wisdom, "even in the ashes." As Ethan nodded, his eyes reflecting both gratitude and sorrow, Ava held the heart close to her chest for a moment, before slipping it into her pocket. Their love story had ended years ago, but its echoes lived on, shaping their lives and the lives of those around them. Ava's journey had proven that love, when faced with hate, could endure and inspire, even if it didn't unfold as one might expect. In the end, it wasn't about rekindling what they had lost, but about honoring the lessons they had learned. Together, yet apart, they continued their shared mission: to turn fields of hate into gardens of understanding, one heart at a time. This story reminds us that hate thrives in silence, but love has the power to break barriers and inspire change. It challenges us to stand for what's right, even when it's hard, and shows that redemption is possible when we choose courage over fear. Most importantly, it teaches that love, whether romantic or transformative, is the key to healing a fractured world.